I was sleeping in the tent, exhausted from drills, when I heard the flap rustle, dramatic pause. My commanding officer crawled in. His eyes met mine, and suddenly the air felt heavier, charged with something I couldn't name. Was this discipline or desire? This isn't just another BL webtoon setup. This is a yaoi manhwa love story of forbidden attraction, loyalty, and the kind of romance that blooms where it shouldn't. The story begins in a remote military camp, a place so isolated it feels cut off from the rest of the world. The camp rests at the foot of jagged mountains, their dark silhouettes pressing against the horizon like immovable guardians. The silence here is not peaceful, it's oppressive. Even the wind seems restrained, as though it dares not disturb the rigid atmosphere of discipline. Every inch of the camp reflects authority, tents lined in perfect rows, boots polished to mirror shine, and voices reduced to barked commands echoing against the mountain walls. Days are structured with mechanical precision. A whistle pierces the dawn, dragging exhausted soldiers out of restless dreams. The rhythm begins, boots striking the dirt in unison, lungs burning in the cold morning air. Commands break the silence, harsh and absolute. Push-ups until arms tremble, marching until the soles of feet blister. Rifle drills under the scorching sun. Every movement measured, timed and repeated until it becomes second nature. Here, individuality is erased, replaced by the collective identity of the unit. No one is a person. Everyone is a soldier. And yet, beneath this perfect machine, human hearts still beat. Each man carries his own private fears, hopes, and forbidden desires. But emotions are dangerous here. They are tucked away like contraband, hidden in secret glances, swallowed words, or the way a hand lingers a moment too long when passing a canteen. These emotions exist in silence, invisible, yet impossible to erase. In the midst of this suffocating order stands Private Minjai. He's young, just barely into adulthood, with features still soft around the edges despite the sharp cut of his uniform. Minjay didn't join the military out of ambition or patriotism. He joined to escape. Back home, his life was a blur of expectations he could never meet, responsibilities that pressed down on him, and a quiet loneliness that no one seemed to notice. The military promised structure. It promised a place where rules dictated everything, where he wouldn't need to decide who he was because the uniform would decide for him. But Minjai quickly learns that the uniform doesn't erase the heart beating beneath it. He tries to blend in, to lose himself in the crowd of recruits. Yet he often stands out. His stubbornness makes him push harder than the others. His sincerity makes him hesitate to laugh at cruel jokes. And the quiet softness in his eyes betrays a vulnerability that the military tries to crush. He's hardworking, yes, but there's something about him that seems different, something that draws attention, even when he doesn't want it. Attention he especially doesn't want, from Captain Seong-hyun. Seong-hyun is everything Minjai is not. He is sharp, commanding, with an aura that demands silence when he enters a room. His reputation is flawless. A soldier's soldier, unwavering discipline, unmatched skill, and an unshakable sense of duty. Men stand straighter when he passes, not just out of respect but out of fear. His words are law. His gaze is steel. To the recruits he seems untouchable, as though nothing human resides behind the crisp folds of his uniform. But Seong-hyun is not a god. He is a man. And behind his flawless exterior lies a private storm he has never allowed anyone to see. The first time Minjai notices it is subtle, a glance held longer than necessary during roll call, a correction in training where Seong-hyun's hand rests on his shoulder, a beat too long, moments that could be dismissed as imagination, except Min-jae feels them too sharply to ignore. A sharp current runs beneath the surface, a tension he doesn't understand, yet cannot escape. Life in the camp amplifies everything. Isolation strips away distractions. Days blur into one another, and small details begin to matter more than they should. The way Seong-hyun's voice lowers when he speaks to Min-jae compared to others. The rare, fleeting softness in his eyes when Min-jae struggles but doesn't give up. The way their paths cross more often than coincidence should allow. At night, the camp is quieter, but no less suffocating. Soldiers retreat to their tents, their exhaustion silencing any desire for chatter. Min-jae lies on his thin mattress, staring at the ceiling of canvas above him, listening to the rhythmic breaths of his fellow recruits. Yet even in stillness, his mind races. He replays the day's moments, the way Seong-hyun's shadow fell across him, the weight of his gaze, the unspoken words in the silence between them. It is during these nights that Min-jae realizes the truth. Discipline governs their days, but desire haunts their nights. For Seong-hyun, this truth is even more dangerous. His position as captain makes him untouchable in the eyes of others, but it also shackles him to the higher standard. One misstep, one rumor, and everything he's built crumbles, yet he finds himself drawn to Min-jae despite every rational reason to resist. Min-jae's presence feels like a crack in his armor, a reminder that beneath the soldier's mask, he is still human, and being near him feels both terrifying and necessary. Their story doesn't explode into existence. It builds piece by piece in stolen moments and unsaid words. The military camp becomes a stage where their emotions play out in shadows and silences. A salute that lasts a second too long. A correction disguised as discipline, but heavy with something else. Rain pouring on tents, creating the illusion of privacy. Thunder masking the sound of quickened breaths, all of it building towards something neither of them can name, but both of them feel. In this remote camp, where freedom is a distant dream and rules reign supreme, a forbidden romance begins to take root. It's fragile, like a spark in the wind. It shouldn't survive. And yet, in the suffocating silence of mountains and marching boots, it burns all the brighter. This is not just the story of soldiers. This is the story of desire clashing with duty, hearts rebelling against rules, and love daring to exist where it shouldn't. Our protagonist is Private Min-jae, a young recruit who joined the military to escape the weight of his ordinary life. He is earnest, hard-working, but painfully naive about the realities of military discipline. He tries to blend in, but he often stands out for his stubbornness, his sincerity, and the quiet softness in his eyes. Then there's Captain Seong-hyun, the commanding officer, cold, disciplined, with an aura that demands respect. His reputation is flawless, a soldier who sacrifices everything for order and loyalty. But beneath the uniform and authority lies a man carrying his own secrets, secrets he can't allow anyone to see. Their worlds collide in the most unexpected way. A late-night inspection turns into a moment that changes everything. A glance held too long, a hand that lingers where it shouldn't. For Min-jae, it sparks confusion. For Seong-hyun, it ignites a conflict between duty and desire. This is a BL webtoon come to life, the classic forbidden romance trope, wrapped in the tension of strict rules, sleepless nights, and the undeniable pull of attraction. A yaoi manhwa, where every salute, every command, carries double meaning. A romance manga story where even silence feels loud with emotion. Conflict, main story, expanded, 2,000 words. At first, Min-jae dismisses it. A look is just a look, he tells himself. His imagination must be playing tricks on him, fueled by exhaustion and the suffocating heat of camp life. The days are so repetitive, so monotonous, that his mind could easily invent meaning in places where there is none. After all, Captain Seong-hyun is a man of discipline, a soldier to his core. Someone like him wouldn't falter. He wouldn't slip. He wouldn't see Min-jae the way Min-jae sometimes fears, no, hopes. He does. But then the moments begin to multiply. During drills, Seong-hyun walks the line of recruits with the precision of a hawk, eyes sharp and unforgiving. When he stops at Min-jae, it feels different. His gaze lingers a heartbeat longer than necessary. His corrections are harsher, but his hands, firm on Min-jae's shoulders, straightening his posture, adjusting the angle of his grip on the rifle, linger a second too long. A second that burns itself into Min-jae's skin like fire, leaving him shivering in the cold dawn. "Keep your back straight, Private," Seong-hyun says. His voice is cold, clipped, but Min-jae hears something beneath it, something warmer, something dangerous. Later, during mealtime, Min-jae sits with the other recruits, laughing at their crude jokes and forced banter, but he can feel it, Seong-hyun's eyes on him from across the mess hall. He doesn't dare look at first. His spoon shakes slightly as he stirs his thin soup, but eventually, curiosity wins. He glances up. Their eyes meet, just for a moment, just long enough for the current to surge through him again, sharp and undeniable. Seong-hyun doesn't look away. Neither does Min-jae, until the tension becomes too much and he drops his gaze back to the table, heart pounding. "Why me?" he whispers under his breath. The question meant for no one but himself. The tension grows unbearable. Each day feels like a balancing act, where one wrong step could send everything crashing down. The unspoken becomes louder than words. Silence becomes a language all its own. One evening, during a grueling training exercise, Min-jae trips on uneven ground and twists his ankle. The other recruits laugh it off, teasing him for his clumsiness, but Seong-hyun's reaction is different. His voice is sharper than the others have ever heard it. He silences the laughter with a glare and pulls Min-jae aside. "You need to take care of yourself," he says, his tone low but carrying an intensity that makes Min-jae's chest tighten. "You're no use to the unit if you break." Min-jae swallows, staring at him. For the first time, he sees not just the captain, but the man beneath the uniform, the way his brows furrow in concern, the softness hidden behind his steel-grey eyes. It's fleeting, gone as quickly as it came, but Min-jae carries the image with him long after the moment ends. From that night onward, their dynamic shifts. It's subtle at first, so subtle that Min-jae wonders if he's imagining it again. But the signs are undeniable. Seong-hyun checks on him more often. Under the guise of discipline, he corrects Min-jae's mistakes with more patience than he shows the others. When the rain lashes down on the camp and recruits scramble to keep their gear dry, Seong-hyun orders Min-jae to stay inside instead of enduring the storm like the rest. No one questions it. Seong-hyun's word is law. But Min-jae feels the difference, feels the weight of being singled out. Late at night, after drills and punishments and exhaustion have driven the others to sleep, Seong-hyun sometimes finds reasons to keep Min-jae behind. "Your form needs work," he'll say. Or, "You're too sloppy with your rifle grip." The excuses are thin, transparent, but Min-jae obeys without question, because he knows what those moments really mean. The training sessions stretch longer than necessary. They talk more than they should. At first, it's about drills, strategy, and discipline. But slowly, other words creep in. Questions about Min-jae's life before the military, answers about Seong-hyun's past, carefully chosen, but still revealing cracks in the armor he wears. Their conversations grow longer, their silences grow heavier, and every time they part, Min-jae feels like something essential has been left unsaid. Still, the fear never fades. It lurks in the back of Min-jae's mind like a shadow. If anyone finds out, it's not just scandal, it's destruction. Military rules are absolute. Discipline is non-negotiable. For Min-jae, discovery means punishment, dishonor, the loss of everything he has tried to build. For Seong-hyun, the stakes are even higher. His rank, his reputation, his career, all of it would crumble in an instant, and yet, despite knowing this, neither of them can seem to stop. The breaking point comes one stormy night. Rain hammers against the canvas of the tent, the sound so loud it drowns out even the thoughts in Min-jae's head. Lightning flashes across the mountains, followed by thunder that rattles the earth beneath him. Min-jae lies awake, staring into the darkness, his heart restless. The storm outside feels like a reflection of the storm inside him, wild, uncontrollable, and threatening to tear everything apart. Then suddenly, he hears it, the sound of the tent flap rustling. Min-jae sits up, startled, his pulse racing. And there, crawling inside, is Captain Seong-hyun. He's drenched, his uniform clinging to him, his hair slicked against his forehead. His presence fills the small tent, overwhelming in its intensity. Min-jae's mouth goes dry. "Captain, what are you—" "Quiet," Seong-hyun interrupts, his voice barely audible over the rain, but his tone is different. Not commanding, not cold, something else entirely. His eyes burn with an intensity Min-jae has never seen before, unguarded, raw. The silence between them stretches, thick as smoke. Their breaths are the only sound besides the storm. Min-jae's heart pounds in his chest, and he can feel the weight of Seong-hyun's presence pressing down on him, suffocating yet intoxicating. Finally, Seong-hyun speaks, his voice trembling just slightly. "Tell me to leave, Min-jae. Just one word, and I'll go." But Min-jae doesn't speak. His silence becomes its own kind of confession, a surrender without words, a choice that will change everything. Seong-hyun exhales, a sound halfway between relief and despair. He crawls closer, the space between them shrinking until Min-jae can feel the heat radiating from his body. His hand brushes against Min-jae's tentative searching, and when Min-jae doesn't pull away, Seong-hyun's resolve shatters. For a long moment, they simply stare at each other, the world reduced to the four walls of the tent and the storm raging outside. And then, slowly, inevitably, Seong-hyun leans in. Their lips meet, hesitant at first, then urgent, desperate, like a dam breaking after years of pressure. The kiss is wrong, forbidden, dangerous, but it feels more real than anything either of them has ever known. In that instant, the rules don't matter. The risks don't matter. All that matters is the fire igniting between them, consuming every fear, every hesitation. When they part, breathless, Seong-hyun's forehead rests against Min-jae's. His voice is unsteady, stripped of its usual authority. "I can't promise you forever. I can't even promise you tomorrow, but tonight." He swallows hard, his hand gripping Min-jae's tightly. "Tonight, you're mine." And in that fragile, stolen moment, Min-jae knows he wouldn't trade it for anything. The tension is unbearable, forbidden, and yet intoxicating. One night, during a training exercise, Min-jae trips and injures his ankle. The other soldiers laugh it off, but Seong-hyun's reaction is different. He pulls Min-jae aside, his voice softer than anyone has ever heard it. "You need to take care of yourself. You're no use to the unit if you break. Min-jae stares at him. For the first time, he sees not the captain, but the man, a man with warmth behind his strict eyes. From that night onward, their dynamic shifts. What had once been stray glances and fleeting touches becomes something deeper, heavier, something that both of them can no longer deny. The silence between them grows louder, weighted with unspoken truths. Every step, every command, every moment in the camp now carries a double meaning, and both of them know it. Small, hidden moments accumulate like contraband letters passed in the dark. They are subtle, carefully disguised beneath layers of discipline, but for Min-jae and Seong-hyun, they carry the weight of confessions. When rain lashes the camp and recruits scramble to keep their gear dry, Seong-hyun singles Min-jae out. "Stay in your tent," he orders, his tone brisk and authoritative. To anyone else, it's nothing unusual, just another command. But Min-jae feels it for what it truly is, an act of quiet protection. He obeys, of course, but as he sits alone in the dim glow of his lantern, he wonders if Seong-hyun is somewhere out there, watching his tent, making sure he's safe. The thought warms him more than the blanket draped over his shoulders. During drills, when Min-jae falters, Seong-hyun doesn't humiliate him like he might another recruit. Instead, he calls him aside after hours. "Your form needs correction," he says, voice clipped, though his eyes soften the words. They train together under the pale light of the moon, shadows stretching across the dirt. Seong-hyun's hands adjust his grip, his stance, the angle of his elbow. Every touch sends a jolt through Min-jae, and though the lessons are harsh, he finds himself craving them. Not for the improvement they bring, but for the closeness, for the way Seong-hyun's presence feels both terrifying and comforting. And then there are the silences. Long, heavy pauses between words, where neither speaks but both understand. In those moments, they say more than any language could. A look, a breath, the brush of fingers against a sleeve. Each silence grows heavier, more charged until it feels like the entire camp might collapse beneath its weight. But the more their bond deepens, the more dangerous it becomes. Min-jae knows the risks. If anyone notices the way his eyes soften when Seong-hyun calls his name, or the way Seong-hyun's voice lowers when addressing him, the consequences will be catastrophic. Still, he can't stop. He doesn't want to stop. For the first time in his life, he feels truly seen, and he cannot give that up. One evening, while the other recruits joke and bicker around the campfire, Min-jae slips away to fetch water. Seong-hyun follows, his steps silent, his presence a shadow in the dark. When Min-jae turns, startled, the captain is already there, close enough that Min-jae can see the reflection of the firelight in his eyes. "You shouldn't be out here alone," Seong-hyun says softly, his tone stripped of authority. "And you shouldn't be following me," Min-jae replies, though his voice lacks conviction. Seong-hyun steps closer until the space between them is thin as a breath. "Maybe I should." The air hums with tension, with the unsaid words pressing at the edges of their lips. But before either can move closer, a shout rings out from the camp, pulling them back into their roles. Min-jae turns away, his pulse racing, while Seong-hyun straightens, his expression hardening once more. They return to the fire separately, but the distance between them feels more fragile than ever. Days blur into nights, and the hidden moments multiply. Sometimes, Seong-hyun finds excuses to keep Min-jae behind. Extra drills, additional tasks, pointless lectures. To the other recruits, it looks like punishment. To Min-jae, it feels like a gift, because in those moments, They are alone, and in their aloneness, the world shifts. Seong-hyun's mask slips, and Min-jae sees the man beneath. The man who is terrified, conflicted, but unable to stay away. The breaking point comes unexpectedly, in a moment so ordinary it should have meant nothing. It is another stormy night. Rain pours down in relentless sheets, drumming against the canvas of the tents. Thunder shakes the earth, and lightning illuminates the camp in brief, blinding flashes. Min-jae lies awake, staring at the ceiling, his mind restless. He thinks of Seong-hyun, of the way his hand lingered earlier that day when adjusting Min-jae's stance, of the softness in his eyes when he thought no one was looking. Then the tent flap rustles. Min-jae's breath catches. He sits up, heart pounding, and there, slipping inside, drenched and breathless, is Seong-hyun. The air in the tent shifts immediately, thick with tension. Water drips from Seong-hyun's hair onto the floor. His uniform clings to him, soaked through, outlining every line of his body. His eyes lock onto Min-jae's, and in them, Min-jae sees something fierce, something unguarded. "Captain, what are you?" "Quiet," Seong-hyun whispers. Though his voice trembles with restraint, he kneels on the floor, his breath unsteady. "If I stay out there, I'll lose my mind." Min-jae stares at him, unsure if he should move, speak, or even breathe. The storm outside rattles the canvas, but the storm inside the tent feels even wilder. Seong-hyun leans closer, his hand brushing against Min-jae's. The touch is hesitant, almost questioning. "Tell me to leave," he says, voice raw. "One word and I'll go. No one will know." But Min-jae doesn't speak. His silence is louder than words, a confession, an answer, a surrender. Something in Seong-hyun breaks. He exhales shakily, his forehead pressing against Min-jae's. For a moment, they simply breathe together, the space between them collapsing. Then slowly, Seong-hyun closes the distance. Their lips meet, tentative at first, then urgent, desperate. The kiss tastes of rain and fear and longing, but above all, it tastes of truth. It's wrong. It's dangerous. It could destroy them both. And yet, it feels more real than anything either of them has ever known. Seong-hyun pulls back only enough to speak, his voice unsteady. "I can't promise you forever. I can't even promise you tomorrow." His hand cups Min-jae's cheek, trembling. "But tonight," he swallows hard. "Tonight you're mine." And in the fragile sanctuary of the tent, with the storm raging outside, two soldiers surrender to a love they can no longer deny. For one night, discipline crumbles, rules dissolve, and the world shrinks to nothing but the heat of their bodies and the weight of their hearts. Still, the fear remains. If anyone finds out, it's not just scandal, it's destruction. Military rules are clear. Discipline is absolute. For Min-jae, the risk is his future. For Seong-hyun, the risk is everything he's built. Then comes the night in question. Min-jae lies awake in his tent, rain pounding against the canvas. The storm rattles every corner of camp. Suddenly, the flap opens. Seong-hyun crawls inside, drenched, his uniform clinging to him. His presence fills the small space, overwhelming. Min-jae sits up, startled. "Captain, what are you?" "Quiet," Seong-hyun whispers. His eyes burn with something fierce, unguarded. For once, there is no authority, no command, only desire. The silence stretches, thick as smoke. Their breathing sinks. Then Seong-hyun leans closer, his voice low. "Tell me to leave, Min-jae. Just one word, and I'll go." But Min-jae doesn't speak, and that silence becomes its own kind of confession. The storm outside grows wilder, but inside the tent, everything narrows to this moment. Seong-hyun's hand brushes Min-jae's, tentative, yet desperate. Min-jae's heart slams against his ribs, louder than thunder. Their lips meet, hesitant at first, then urgent like a dam breaking. It's wrong, it's dangerous, but it feels more real than anything they've ever known. Whisper tone. Every rule shatters in the space of a single kiss. When they part, Hyun's voice trembles for the first time. I can't promise you forever. I can't even promise you tomorrow. But tonight, he presses his forehead to Min-jae's. Tonight, you're mine. The tent becomes their sanctuary, a fragile world built of stolen touches and breathless whispers. Outside, the storm rages. Inside, two soldiers surrender to something far more powerful than duty. When dawn comes, the storm has passed. Min-jae and Hyun return to their roles, captain and recruit, bound by silence and secrecy. But nothing is the same. Every drill, every command now carries unspoken meaning. Their story doesn't end with the sunrise. It only deepens in shadows. This yaoi romance is more than just passion. It's about the price of desire, the weight of choices, and the courage to love when love itself is forbidden. In the language of BL webtoons and manhwa love stories, it's the quiet reminder that even in the harshest places, like a military camp, hearts still find a way to beat together. What did you feel in that stormy tent? Softly heartbroken, emotional, or secretly thrilled? Tell me in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more BL webtoon story breakdowns, yaoi manhwa love tales, and romance manga summaries. And check the description for full story links and more BL recommendations you'll love.